Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the C.I.C. Lounge. I'm Peter.
I'm Jen.
And today we're going to be talking about one of our favorite movies.
Well, I don't know if I'd call it a favorite. Batteries not included. So this was a movie that we had on VHS growing up. One of the handful of movies, and when you only have a handful of movies, you tend to watch the same movies over and over again. So as a child, I saw this movie several times, many times. And it's interesting seeing it as an adult. It's a little bit of a different experience.
Much different of an experience. As a kid, I thought it was so whimsical and cute and funny. You know, the little guys jumping around, you know, being dropped in the sink full of soapy water. Mm-hmm. The little bubble coming out of his mouth. That was so funny and cute.
Yeah.
As an adult, I see it completely different. I'm watching this almost horror story for this elderly couple that lived almost their entire lives, or at least their entire married life, in this one building in New York City. Mm-hmm. And just the trauma of watching their neighborhood being torn down by big companies and being bullied into leaving their home. And then the emotional trauma that goes along with that.
I think this, I think you could get away with this in like the 80s and 90s in a way that you can't today. Like the sheer brutality of those enforcers, of that gang of young guys that came in and just like took a baseball bat to the cafe, and the way they were shoving the tenants around, trying to intimidate them into leaving.
And you heard what the cops said when the old man is like talking to the police officer, "Hey, go arrest these guys."
Yeah.
What can I do? They're just going to say that they have 15 eyewitnesses saying that they were somewhere else. And in that period of time, in the early 80s, there wasn't cameras everywhere. Nobody had a cell phone camera.
No, it wasn't like it is today.
I don't even think in that era cell phones weren't even a thing yet.
I don't think so. This movie was 1987.
Oh, 80. I thought it was early 80s.
No, so it was later 80s. So this film, I did a little bit of digging around, and there wasn't a whole lot I could find on it. The lead characters, an older couple. Mm-hmm. Let's call them an old couple because they are well beyond retirement years. The female character played by Jessica Tandy is demented or senile. You know, she's not all there. That's actually, those two actors are actually were married in real life. They've both since passed away, but yes. They often did stage and screen together playing a married couple. So there's a natural chemistry between them that
explains why they did so well together.
Yeah, it's very cute the way that presented. And one of the things as I was watching this as an adult, I'm like, you don't see older people on stage or on screen really at all. You see them as grandparents, ancillary characters, background characters. Mm-hmm. You don't really see retired and older as your principal characters. And this couple, this old couple, was the principal protagonist of this film.
I liked seeing their kind of growth with the episode, with the movie, how she is completely out of her rocker. I mean, the very first scene you see, she is walking down this just, rubbish strewn street and sidewalk. She's got a slipper on one foot, a dress shoe on the other. She's hauling a cart behind her, and her glasses are askew. She's got the wrong kind of hat with the dress. I mean, she's just an absolute mess, but she's just living her best life. Mm-hmm. She's on a walk to the market, and she gets to the market. The market's been destroyed, and she's completely confused. And so you're right off the bat, you're getting this idea that this woman is not altogether there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that the directors and scriptwriters did a really good job with her growth, because by the end of the movie, with the help of our little space friends, she's kind of come back to her senses. Not completely.
Yeah.
But I liked her a lot. Of course, I always liked her in all the movies, like in, what was it, Driving Miss Daisy. I thought she did a fantastic job in that movie.
Yeah, she's a fantastic actress, and she had a clearly defined arc, from from being lost in her world to then by the end of the movie being a bit grounded, and then still having the miracle in
Yeah.
the end. And one of the things that I really liked in this movie too was this: who's this miracle for? You
Yeah.
know, like the old man in the movie, Mr. Riley, he like prays, for lack of a better term, and then these things show up. Now, the movie never gives away what these things are, and I actually really appreciated that, because if we were to live through something like this, we wouldn't know. We could only speculate. So, are they alien? Are they artificial intelligence? Are they part of an emergence? You know, a confluence of code and technology that have come together and self-replicate. Like, we don't know that they're alien in nature. We don't know that they aren't just some sort of spontaneous creation of an amalgamy of technology on Earth. I do think in like some of the behind the scenes stuff, they do allude to the fact that these are like sentient spaceships. So that wouldn't indicate that they're alien in nature, but it doesn't actually state that in the movie. They just sort of are these things that fly in and then they can rapidly fix things.
Which, watching the movie again, like as a kid, I loved it, but watching it as an adult and for the first time in several years, a couple decades at least, I'm watching the movie and I'm like, when do these little guys come in? Like we've gotten like maybe almost full 30 minutes before
Yes.
these little buggers come in. And, you know, we have so much fun with them throughout the entire movie, but at the very end, they just kind of fly off and there's no real closure. We see the new buildings that are built up and put in, you know, side by side against the building that these people, our protagonists, have defended against the evil company CEO.
Yeah, the developer.
Yeah.
You know, when I was watching it, I've been paying a real close attention to when story beats develop, and I noticed that. I'm like, we've been watching a lot of this setup, and by 1987 standards, it probably didn't feel that long.
Yeah.
But by today's standards, I'm like, nah, we should be much further into the plot by this. I'm looking at my clock like, nah, this is taking too long. Like, we get it. She's demented. She needs help. You know,
I
like
was feeling the same way.
You know, you've already made that point. So I know in like when they make a feature film and then they show it on television, sometimes scenes are cut, and there were a lot of those opening scenes in the first part of the movie before the flying things show up that were cut for timing.
Yeah.
And it didn't, and as I was looking at, they cut that scene. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, because you've already gotten what the central point of that scene delivers. You don't need to keep pounding that point in. You know, we're an audience. We're a pretty intelligent audience. We get it. So in doing some more homework for this, they spent like a year location scouting, and they were looking all over the country for a place because they needed a standalone isolated building with rubble all around it. And they ended up finding a block in New York that was vacant, a vacant lot, a whole block. And so the production designer actually built 3 sides of this 4-story building.
Really?
You know, and then they trucked in like 60 truckloads of rubbish to just put all around the block. And they had it all set up and ready to go. And during some point during production, like, New York Sanitation came by and actually cleaned up a bunch of the rubble because they didn't realize it was part of a set.
Guys, no.
And then someone else, I don't know if it was from the city or whatnot, came down to the set and was like, you don't have a permit for this building. So they walk them to the other side, and it's all held up by scaffolding. It's not a real
building,
It's
guys.
just a facade, for all the exteriors. So very realistic, looking. And I imagine that's today would all be done probably virtually.
CG, yeah.
You wouldn't bother with actually building up 4 stories of a building facade.
But it just gives it that realism.
There is a definite realism, although I noticed like you could feel it like on the street level when they're showing this facade and whatnot. But when you get up to the rooftop, I'm like, oh, we're on a soundstage now.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
the painted background.
Yeah.
It was very nostalgic for me seeing that, because I'm like, oh,
yeah,
all the movies I grew up with,
right,
painted backgrounds.
Right, matte paintings in the background.
You kids these days, you just don't know how good you got it.
Right.
actors standing in front of TV screens that show the actual background that the audience is going to see. No. We had to deal with very fake looking paintings
Right. That there was no parallax, there was no perspective shift when the camera moved. No change in lighting, like
where the shadow, you see the sun way in the background, but the shadow is actually
like in
in
the
the other
wrong
direction.
direction. Yeah. So I like this movie. I would not say it's a favorite, but it has a very nostalgic feel to it.
Oh, absolutely.
I think this was originally supposed to be like an Outer Limits type episode for something, but Spielberg really liked the story and wanted to do it as a standalone feature instead.
What I like about this movie is that it's so simple, so cute, and so sweet, but it doesn't need a whole lot else. And I would hate to see this movie rebooted in today's society, because they're gonna make the little robots talk. They're gonna have, like, the Transformer mouth movements, which, Optimus Prime looks so ridiculous with his mouth moving around, which is why they cover up his mouth most of the time in the last few movies. But I don't want to see them. They were cute, and they got their point across. I don't like you. I'm gonna fly really fast to your face and buzz around you.
You get all of the feeling and characterization through movement
Yeah.
and through like sound effects and blips and chirps and the way the machines rotate around and whatnot. No,
They got the point across just fine with no.
I think this story could be rebooted, but not in the same way.
No.
I think the story would be completely different. You could have like an ensemble cast in trouble, like the little guy fighting the big man, the big corporation for something, and these creatures come in and help save the day, kind of a thing. I think that's a recurring premise in storytelling. So I would probably not want to see Batteries Not Included rebooted. Like the title comes from, obviously a commercial, and one of the characters in the films that's all he does is quote taglines from commercials. And I would say that, like, I don't know that commercials today have those same kind of jingly tagline,
Not really.
recognizable, because so much of what we watch is streamed, or we fast forward, or we DVR through commercials. Like we tend to tune out commercials now.
I was just thinking the same thing. Like, how many of us, aside from the Super Bowl, sit down and watch the commercials?
Yeah, that's our bathroom break. That's our snack break.
Yeah.
That's like, no one's sticking. You're deliberately tuning out the noise of a commercial. Whereas when you're a kid, I mean, it was, there was no pause, there was no fast forward. Like,
So you were stuck.
You were stuck watching the commercials between. So,
And the only thing you could really do is hit mute. So,
yeah.
the commercials are designed to be amped up like 15 decibels over whatever you were watching.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I think kind of hit me when I was watching this is the corporate greed. You have this big nameless corporation, faceless nameless corporation, buying up all these lots and tearing down these buildings, and the one building that still has people living in it and is maintaining, they're staying there, they're not going to leave, and they're getting bullied and pushed out by force. That's what these corporations are doing these days. And they don't even, they have no remorse about it. I mean, look what's going on in Maui. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I don't want to get too much into politics, but it's just, it kind of hit me with watching all those scenes when, what was the character's name? Carlos? Or Bobby.
Yeah.
When he's trying to make a name for himself by going and talking to the big wigs and saying, like, I'll get these people out. Don't worry. I got you, boss. I got you. Like, yeah.
They don't care.
No, they don't care.
They want results. It's all about the bottom line.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when that's the problem with stupid money, stupid wealth, is that when people get to a point and they're really not human anymore. They don't really understand the struggle. they don't, and to them it's about the acquisition of more, and like that's unhealthy, that's gross,
Yeah.
that's despicable, because that more has a higher cost that they don't pay. It's the common man that pays it.
Yeah.
So, as far as like themes in this movie, still very much relevant today.
Oh, yeah.
Like this, like as far as this story taking place, it could take place at any point in time in human history where
yeah.
you've got money trying to push out the have-nots.
Yeah, and it's not just like the ridiculous billions of dollars that people today have. I mean, this could, like you said, this could take place 600-700 years ago, and it would still be relevant.
Yeah.
You still have wealthy landowners that are trying to push peasants out of their way so that they can take what they have and build something better and new in order to get more money.
Not necessarily better, but yeah, new and
Or-
different,
yeah.
and to service a different community.
Yeah.
And that's really odd. Like in this movie, the towers that are built, I mean, like they completely dwarf this 4-story walk up, like, I mean, and you look at it, I'm like, that's a corporate downtown hub. That's not a residential community anymore. So in the end, it's like, was it really even worth it? Because your community is gone. Yeah, your building is still there.
Yeah.
You could still live there, but your whole community is gone.
And it's 5 people living in this building. You have an elderly couple, one with dementia, who
Yeah.
is probably, both of them are not long for this world at this point in this movie.
Yes.
And then you have what was he, like he wasn't the landlord or anything.
He was a super. He was the superintendent.
super.
He was the guy who fixed things.
Yeah, so you've got him, he's probably got a couple more decades at least. And then you have a young new couple-ish, an artist, and then a pregnant woman.
Yeah.
Who fall in love with each other throughout the antics of the movie.
It was interesting. Like, what is her character? She's pregnant. Like, there's really nothing else. Like, she's in love with a musician, the father of her baby, who's not really in the film, who makes a cameo appearance and then leaves again, like, so she can fall in love with this other guy. But
Yeah,
there's
and you
nothing
don't even
else.
see him. He gets out of a car and
Yeah.
she gets all excited seeing him and his bandmates getting out of a taxi.
Yeah.
And then you don't see them again.
Yeah. So, like, as far as her character development, yeah, she's afraid. She's basically going to be a single mother. But, like, there's very little about her character
Yeah.
other than she's clearly a vulnerable woman because she's pregnant and seemingly alone. So the artist, kind of feels a degree, wants to extend a degree of responsibility to take care of her, to nurture her, which I think is a bit patronizing, but
A little
it's
bit.
1987.
Yeah. And the whole scene when she comes home from grocery shopping and the guys are all sitting on the stoop and they're pawing at her and catcalling her.
Oh.
It's just like, dude, she's like 8 or 9 months pregnant.
That was a disgusting scene.
That's
I had a
so
hard time watching that scene, and I'm like, you could get away with stuff like that in 1987. It's not to say that you couldn't see a scene like that today, but the outcome would be much grittier, much dirtier, But even then, just watching that, broad daylight,
Yeah.
there's construction crews all around, demolition crews clearing the streets and whatnot. And these guys are just, if you, I imagine myself in her situation. She doesn't know how far these guys are going to go.
No.
Like, you would think most even bad guys would kind of be a little hands off with a clearly pregnant woman. These guys had no boundaries.
There's a line you don't cross, even if you're a degenerate human being.
Right.
But these guys were just, nope.
Sailed right past it.
Well, clearly she has sex.
So-
God. Sorry, that was bad even for me.
yeah. So,
But yeah, no. Overall, I liked the movie. I mean, I loved it as a kid, and I still enjoy it. It's a very cute, fun movie.
family. It's a family.
It's
movie.
a family
It's
movie.
a family movie.
Yeah, there's no over the top violence, and it's all kind of silly little antics. I mean, the worst thing that happens to anybody is that they get electrocuted by one of the little space critters.
And that's meant to be more comedic.
Exactly.
When that happens. But yeah. I I'm actually kind of surprised that there was never a sequel to this. Just like these creatures visiting someone else and having another adventure. Not even necessarily the same creatures, but
Yeah.
little flying spaceships come in and create a miracle for someone else. Like, that's not a bad story concept. I'm really surprised Spielberg didn't
Well, I mean,
sequel that.
was the whole point of these two ships, because it comes across as a male and female of this species, and I mean, in one scene, everybody's like, "What are they doing in there?" And there's the whole shack on the roof is shaking, and the lights are flicking on and off, and the little old lady with dementia goes, "What do you think they're doing?"
Duh. Pretty obvious.
And the whole scene before that, it's like the two ships flying through Manhattan, and looks like they're on a date, and there's soft music, and it's fun. So clearly these two creatures procreated, and then less than 24 hours later they're spitting out three little babies. And it's like, were they coming down to Earth to get spare parts? And
Well, and that's where, like I was talking about earlier, like they don't actually give the origin of these creatures. So, like, there's a possibility that these aren't alien in nature. Like, one possibility, like that it's actually just a convergence of programming and technology that came together and self-replicated and learned to procreate obviously in such a manner. But by that standard, I don't think they need to be gendered. I think they'd just be a new artificial life form created, and then that would learn how to spontaneously reproduce. But because early in the film when we first see them, like the female drone is like running on a dead battery.
yeah,
So they're looking for electricity, and imagine there's all sorts of buildings in New York where you could plug into,
but they just happen to come across this lone building.
They just fall into this one apartment, and plug in here, and okay, they like the juice here. So
There's something about it.
Who knows? They could have been on a long interstellar voyage. They could have fallen out of a much larger collection of spaceships. I mean, like I said, there's so much about them we don't know, and I don't think we really need to know, because at the heart of this, as cute as those little alien creatures are, they aren't the story. It's not about them. It's about the ensemble cast that lives in this falling down building, why they're trying to save it in the end is kind of a head scratcher. But I get it. It's their home.
The aliens are just little MacGuffins that are cute and adorable. And it was, weren't they part of like McDonald's Happy Meal toys or something?
Could have very well been.
I'm pretty sure I had one of those little toys.
That was a popular thing to do back in the day. You actually don't see a whole lot of that as much.
Not really.
Movies getting fast food toys.
Happy Meal toys.
Yeah.
Oh, that was always the thing though. It was like after like some random movie, like Ninja Turtles came out, and all of a sudden there were like dozens of Happy Meals. I was always like, "Mom, take me to McDonald's. I want a Happy Meal." And this was last week. She still won't take me. I don't know why. It's like, "You're a grown man. Do it yourself." But Mom. But yeah, no, I always enjoyed this movie. So, and I'm having fun with our little like nostalgic.
Oh yeah.
Road trip of movies that we're doing now.
Yeah, until Lower Decks comes out, and then there'll be other stuff we can talk about too. I mean, I imagine we're probably gonna have to dip our toe into the Star Wars franchise at some point.
I mean, along with all the other millions of people that have done the same.
Well, it's like I don't think we can call ourselves a sci-fi podcast and not at least
Star Wars.
gloss over Star Wars. I mean, I realize it's fantasy too, so don't jump down our throats over that. But sci-fantasy.
I've been watching Star Wars Rebels, and it's cute. It's very much a child's TV show, but it's fun.
See, I have a hard time watching the animated stuff.
It's not easy, but
like I can watch Lower Decks, but I have not been able to watch Prodigy.
Oh, I can't watch that. That just looks too corny. But I mean, I watched Ahsoka, and there were some questions that I wanted to get the answers to about the other characters within Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out that you kind of had to go, you don't have to watch the whole entirety of Rebels, but Rebels definitely helps to explain the other characters and where Ahsoka's show is going to be probably heading towards. So
Well, that's good to know.
it,
Since I have tried watching Star Wars Rebels, I've tried watching Clone Wars. I think it's just, I don't know what it is. It does not keep me engaged. I need to be doing something else, and I find that if I am doing something else, I tend to get more wrapped up in that something else, and I lose total focus on what's going on. I've tried several times. It's just not my thing.
I've tried watching Clone Wars a couple times. I mean, I've probably entirety maybe 20 episodes, and it's what 22 episode seasons,
And
and there's like 7 or 8
it
seasons or
went for a
something. I
long
don't know.
time. So
I mean, more power to you guys.
anyway,
Anyway,
that's about all I can say about Batteries Not Included.
yeah. So good, fun, wholesome movie from the 80s for the family to watch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Still looking for more feedback.
Yeah.
What other movies would you like us to talk about?
And please, if you have any comments or questions about this movie or us, please feel free to put those in the comments and ask away. We'll get to them when we can. And I think that's going to be it for us today. So stay tuned. We'll see you guys next week. I'm Peter.
I'm Jen.